That's right. We're back. The Blockspace Live pod. We've been doing it live a little bit, but this time it is actually a live show. Fridays at 12 Eastern. I don't know what that is in universal time, but thanks for joining. It's Colin and Charlie. We are going to do a news roundup of what's been going on this week, and I will tag in Colin for the topics of the day.
It's 5 p.m. UTC.
Okay. Thank you.
But we're Americans, so we go by Eastern
Doesn't
time.
matter. Everybody's Eastern time.
So as Charlie said, we're going to start doing these news roundups live on Friday. And for our inaugural one, we have got an absolutely packed docket. We are going to start with a BTC price update and some commentary from some of our favorite analysts about what the hell happened last week and whether or not that marks a local bottom. Everyone's question, the question that's on top of the mind for everyone. We'll have our hash rate index update looking at hash price, difficulty, and hash rate. A lot of interesting stuff to unpack there. Bitcoin actually just had a historic difficulty adjustment, and it comes after a string of multiple downward difficulty adjustments. The first time we've seen 6 out of 7 in 3 months since 2011. And for the news this week, we've got Bitdeer hitting a legal snag for its Clarington, Ohio data center as one of its neighbors on the site that it is leasing says, no go, guys. We've also got an update on IREN being added to the MSCI USA index. Strategy out, IREN in, I guess you could say. We also have an update from MARA with regards to their attempt to take a controlling stake in a French national company and the attempt by French officials to Frenchify that, whatever that means. And then we will close for the news today on BIP360 for quantum resistance being added to the BIP repo. Seems small, but a big step forward to hopefully mollifying fears over this threat that has been chirped about a lot on Twitter. And on that note, for this week's Cry Corner, an incredible gobbledygook segment on a rival podcast. I don't know if we'd say rival.
Are we in the same category?
Yeah, I mean, probably not. We're a little more niche. They're the they're the blue chip entrenched incumbent podcasters. But before we get into all that, let's go ahead and start with a BTC price update. I'm going to get TradingView up here on the screen. Chart looks terrible if you're looking at
$69,005.
Yeah, I mean, so Bitcoin retrade. Let's get the here. Let's do 1 month here. Still looks terrible, but
yeah,
we'll do 5-day. Looking a little better. Hey. Okay, so as y'all know, probably if you're paying attention to Bitcoin, it's impossible to miss this. But last week, Bitcoin puked. It lost $16,000 within a matter of, I want to say, like 12 hours. Dropped to about 60K before rebounding over the weekend to roughly where we are right now. And it was the 4th largest daily drawdown in Bitcoin's history, roughly 21%. And this obviously has a lot of people wondering what the heck's going on. We did a live stream last week during the market carnage. For me, at least, it's the last few months have been one of the most brutal succession of drawdowns that we've experienced. A lot of this kind of started around October on the infamous 1010. A lot of people have blamed Binance for the cascading liquidations that have led us to where we are. If you want to read up on some of those theories, go check out the newsletter on our website. It's also at at Blockspace Media.
Link in the video description, by the way.
Link in the video description. But if you go to our website, you'll see that post. Charlie wrote it up last night. Fun read for some of the theories as to why we're seeing this current drawdown. But the other question is, what exactly did we see last week, and what does it mean for Bitcoin's price as we head into the second, or as we head in really to the second half of Q1 here? Well, if you're talking to resident on-chain expert, I shouldn't say resident, I wish he was resident here, but if you're talking to on-chain expert James Check of Checked On Chain, also known as Checkmatey on X, he says last week was a classic capitulation event. Now, before you get really excited about buying Bitcoin in the 60s when it puked last week, he says that doesn't rule out lower prices later, but he basically says what we saw last week based on the technical indicators he looks at was a classic capitulation event. It's it's hard not to feel that way when you look at how violent the move downward was. And I think that if you, kind of take it into context with some of the moves we've seen, it definitely feels like someone got flushed out. Leverage was reset. You saw historic short, or not historic, but you saw a bunch of shorts stacking up at this time. And it really kind of set the stage for the reversal we're currently seeing. Whether or not that holds is kind of up for debate. But if you want to take it from the director of global macro at Fidelity, Jurian Timmer, he says, quote, finally, Bitcoin fell to 60K last week, which is in the support zone that I suggested a few months ago when I wrote that another 4-year cycle bull market had likely ended. A decline to only 60K would be relatively shallow for a Bitcoin winner, but as the commodity currency matures, its ups and downs should become less dramatic. It's anyone's guess whether 60K is the low, but my guess is that it is, and that after a few months of backing and filling, the next cyclical bull market will get underway based on a mathematical harmony of past cycles, which of course are not a guarantee of future cycles. My sense is that any future waves could eventually take us to new highs. It feels like that's really kind of the argument right now, Charlie, between people who are not totally sure about what Bitcoin's doing. It's like, do you side on the 4-year cycles are still in play, or do you side on the 4-year cycles aren't in play camp?
I mean, if last October was the top, then that would have been the 4-year cycle. And it actually, ironically, kind of matched it. So a lot of this stuff is much more clear in retrospect. We'll have to see. I will say, like, there are a couple conspiracies regarding the mechanics that caused the kind of, you might consider them dual capitulations on 10-10 of last year and 2-5 of this year. These are rumors and speculations, but I did write about them in the newsletter this week, and it's kind of around Binance and maybe like a yen carry trade and some IBIT options having to like deleverage from a Hong Kong hedge fund. It's fun to read about, nothing definitive. We saw block fills yesterday, also pause withdrawals. Is that one of the bodies floating to the surface? We have no idea. I don't want to say too much on it because it's all speculation right now.
Yeah, I think that's the thing, is everyone has this feeling that someone big blew up, but no one can point to who that was. When FTX went insolvent, it was very clear what was going on.
Yeah, when
and
Terra
in the
went
summer
down,
before that, during the Terra Luna crash,
yeah,
when all of these lenders started blowing up, that was also very clear what was leading to some of that negative price action, right? But with this, that's why I kind of subscribe to that it's probably some big funds in Asia, because we haven't really heard much on the Western side of things of big funds or big institutions going belly up. It makes me think that there's an information and language barrier gap, perhaps, that's keeping us from understanding who exactly blew up in this one.
Yeah, and I also treat this a bit in the piece that I wrote where it could not just be like Asian, but it also could be like outside of the crypto industry. Like maybe it's a more conventional fund, which doesn't touch historically, like publicly touch a lot of crypto stuff, and maybe they got hit. Again, this is the kind of thing that will be much clearer a year from now if anything happened. Or it could just be natural, as Wintermute says, just a quiet Friday afternoon, Thursday afternoon, and the books were thin. Any of those things. But if you want to tap into the rumor mill, we do break out the rumor rag in this week's newsletter. So let's get into the actual news, I think. Yes, hash rate
Before we get into the actual news, let's just do a quick hash rate index update. So this is from our friends at Luxor. Hash price has recovered to roughly $35 per petahash per day on the back of Bitcoin's recovery, but also because we just experienced a pretty historic downward difficulty adjustment, negative difficulty adjustment, I would say, because technically that means the difficulty is going up. I hate that. When Bitcoin's difficulty goes negative, it is raising the ceiling on the difficulty, and when it increases, it's actually lowering the ceiling. But anyway, the last adjustment was -11. It's the largest difficulty adjustment, negative difficulty adjustment since the China mining ban in 2021. And the other really incredible thing about the moment in time that we find ourselves in, if you look at difficulty, I find this to be pretty incredible. 6 out of the last 7. So 6 out of over the last 3 months.
Wait, what was that? 6 out of what?
no.
Hey, well,
No, if you're not
that's
sure, I don't
yeah.
even know what that is, but
Yeah.
I don't want to get sidetracked on it. But Google that meme if you're not
Yeah.
totally sure what that is. That being said, though, over the last 3 months, we've experienced 6 negative difficulty adjustments out of 7 total, and the 7th one was only 0.04% on the upside on Christmas Eve. So we almost had 7 in a row negative difficulty adjustments, and we back it up further. We've actually had out of the last 9, 7 of them have been negative. And for historical context, if you get 6 negative difficulty adjustments in 3 months, the last time we've seen that was 2011. And I believe this was following the collapse of Bitcoin's price when the Silk Road was seized. Yeah, this took place in the fall, the late summer and fall of 2011. At that point, the Silk Road had been shut down after federal agents arrested Ross Ulbricht, and the Bitcoin price kind of tumbled as a result. So obviously, it's not as profitable to mine. All that being said, though, it's still extremely dicey right now for Bitcoin miners. And the next difficulty adjustment is expected to be upwards by about 11%. We've still got about half of the epoch left. So in a week, we'll see where that actually lands. But network hash rate has actually been incredibly resilient. If you look here, the drawdown in Bitcoin's price, it's basically corrected that. And a lot of this was also probably related to Winter Storm Fern as Bitcoin miners went offline and dealt with grid outages as a result. But we'll put a pin in that for now. And we will go ahead and move on to our first story of the day. Big story if you're following the AI expansions with Bitcoin miners. That is Bitdeer facing a lawsuit over its Clarington, Ohio data center. So Bitdeer has been advertising this data center in Clarington, Ohio. It's just on the border of Ohio and West Virginia. We'll get up Google Earth in a minute to show y'all. They've been advertising this as being one of the flagships for their budding AI and HPC business line, and they are working on deploying an HPC data center here. They have about 570 megawatts allocated to this site. They're not using all of it now. They're using much less for their Bitcoin mining operations that are there. But this site is on the Hannibal Industrial Park, which is owned by the Monroe County Port Authority. And that site that Bitdeer is leasing has a shared tenant with a steel fabricator called American Heavy Plate Solutions. And American Heavy Plate Solutions has filed suit against Bitdeer and the Monroe County Port Authority because they say that the construction of this data center will disrupt shared utilities and infrastructure on the property that are guaranteed in its lease. This includes usual utilities like water, electric, internet, and also rail lines and shared road access. Now, obviously, the rail line is very important for this company. I assume that they probably ship freight from the site to endpoint into the market. Super interesting news story in the sense of when you think about counterparty risk, this is not something that I think that most investors would bake in to their models for, or maybe the smarter ones would. But when you're thinking about these Bitcoin miners, when you think about actually owning the site itself, super crucial so that you avoid things like this. And just to give y'all an idea of what we're looking at here, this is the Hannibal Industrial Park. You can see just on the border of the Ohio River, West Virginia is right there. And I'm not totally sure who is where in the park. They included some Xeroxed copies, or I think they were Xeroxed copies of where Bitdeer is and where American Heavy Plate is on the in this park in the lawsuit. Like they had like diagrams, but they're impossible to make out because it's in black and white.
If you're in the area, go check the local drone laws, but drone videos. We would love to feature your drone intel because that stuff is very cool and
maybe
also
we need
very
to
elucidating.
do drone bounties. Maybe we can have like a drone token. I'm
Oh
just
my
kidding.
God.
Don't sue me, SEC. That was a joke.
I like this idea. I'll launch under a NIM.
Anyway, the American Heavy Plate has about 10 acres of this lot, and I believe Bitdeer has the total lot's like 100 acres. Bitdeer has something around. I don't have the number off the top of my head, but it's substantially more than what American Heavy Plate Solutions has. But they shared this property, which American Heavy Plate originally leased from a prior owner. I believe it was Hannibal LLC, something Hannibal Industrial Park LLC. That company sold it to the Monroe County Port Authority in 2021, and Monroe County Port Authority inherited the lease. So that lease is still valid. So this suit was just filed recently. I haven't seen anything yet from Bitdeer in terms of counter arguments against what the American Heavy Plate Solutions is saying, but we will be keeping an eye on this. And Bitdeer talked about this in their January production update, and their stocks sold off as a result, as investors clearly don't want to see this, because this is, again, one of the flagship sites for its HPC business line. So this is a huge wrench in their plans to expand into those services.
Yeah, and this is not the only tension over at Bitdeer. For a company that we wrote about a lot a year ago, featured some great op-eds and some bull theses. I own Bitdeer, disclosure. But this is not the only thing. Like, they have their chip issue, which, if you aren't aware of that, go and read previous Blockspace reporting. But basically, chip delays and accusations that there was misleading by some of the Bitdeer C-suite team, and some of the investors in Bitdeer are angry about that. Like, I don't know if you know the latest update on that, Colin.
I haven't looked into the most recent court filings. That's a good thing to bring up, though. Basically, there was a class action suit by, I believe it's one investor, but it's on behalf of all Bitdeer investors.
Yeah.
And they basically said Bitdeer allegedly misled investors about the progress of their most recent ASIC miner chip. So Bitdeer has a ASIC mining manufacturing line. It's called the Seal Miner. It's basically their competing model for the Bitmain's Antminer series and WhatsMiner and MicroBT's WhatsMiner series. And they've pushed back the production timeline of their latest Seal chip. I believe it's the Seal Seal 04 chip. And they're having to do 2 tape outs now, one with a lesser efficient chip and one with a greater efficiency chip later on in the year. Basically, it looks like, and allegedly, so that we're all clear on the legal stuff here, Bitdeer may have messed up their tape out for this chip, and it didn't meet specs, so they're having to start over. So just a really rough few months for Bitdeer.
Yeah, rough quarter for.
And they had a fire at another facility in Ohio. At the end of
I thought
last
the fire was related to this when you were throwing this story out there. I was like, oh man.
Yeah, no, that was at their Massillon facility in Ohio, and it pushed back. It pushed back some of their plans there for a few months, but it's been a rough few months for Bitdeer, and this is kind of the icing on the top, or the cherry on top, so to speak. So we'll leave that one where it is, and we'll go ahead and move on to IREN, which has some big news. This dropped on the wire last night. We got it published this morning. IREN to join MSCI USA Index. So MSCI runs a bunch of different indices for various sectors and various countries. The USA Index is a conglomeration of large and mid caps. It has a kind of mix of value, momentum, quality, also yield bearing, so dividend paying stocks, I believe. And IREN will be added to this index on March 2nd, after the close of trading on February 27th. So the first official trading day will be March 2nd of this year. And just to give y'all an idea of a little bit more about MSCI, this is one of their most recent investor sheets. And they've got 544 constituent companies. In 2025, it returned 17.75% versus the MSCI World Index, 21.6%. And you can see the top 10 constituents. Surprise, it's what the top 10 constituents are, probably in the S&P as well. It's NVIDIA, Apple, Microsoft, Amazon, Alphabet, different
Alphabet,
stocks. ANC, which is actually really funny.
Where's the rest of the alphabet?
Yeah, right. Meta's in there, and Tesla. I believe the only non Mag 7 company in there is Oracle. see, 1, 2, 3, 4.
No, it's JP Morgan.
5, 6. Yeah, the only Mag 7 company they're missing is Oracle, which is
Oh, yeah.
interesting. Unless I'm wrong about it being a Mag. I'm pretty sure it's a Mag 7 company, right? Yep. Anyway, I'm not going to get caught up on that. Someone's probably going to tell me
but you missed the other one, which
I'm
is
regarded.
But you missed the other one, which is strategy is not.
Yeah, strategy is not, and we covered this a while back. Basically, the guidance was they don't want to add it now, but they might add it later. I think was the
Yeah,
ruling on that. Let me fact check.
it was a we're not saying no, we're just saying not right now.
Yeah,
and I believe there was some leading. There might have been some leading language to indicate like, okay, maybe this is a thing we consider in the future.
Oh yeah, no, my bad. Let's we need to fact check ourselves. This is the problem when you cover news because there's too much stuff going on.
Well, this is live. We don't have to resolve this.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think we should though, because we're actually wrong about this. Because MSCI retained strategy basically said that they might delist them in the future. It's going to be a fluid thing.
So we got it back. I got it backwards. Okay.
Yeah.
I'll take the blame for this one. Thank you for fact checking this.
Yep. Yeah, for sure. So I mean, but we'll see. I mean, strategy has been under pressure, right? So they could absolutely be removed sometime in the future, considering how brutal it's been. And I wanted to also fact check myself on Oracle's not in the Mag 7. But they basically have all the Mag 7 companies here except for I don't know, maybe it is all of them actually. Anyway, IREN will be added to this come March 2nd, and huge move for IREN, honestly. This is the first Bitcoin miner turned AI company that will be added to the MSCI indices, and potentially an augur for further additions throughout the year or into the future, depending on how well these companies can pull off these pivots. But IREN has just been on a massive run since last year. Seems like the market is really pricing in IREN being, if they can execute, IREN being the most valuable out of the companies who are doing this, in the sense that they are going for like pure play, owning the infrastructure, owning the GPUs, and turning themselves into a full stack neo cloud AI shop. So that to me is the most interesting, I think, distinction for these Bitcoin miners as we enter the deployment phase for a lot of these contracts that they've been signing. Over the next year or two, we should see these data centers come online for AI workloads. The majority of Bitcoin miners have decided to go this PowerShell bare metal route, where they are going to build the infrastructure, manage the power, but they want a company like CoreWeave or Amazon, et cetera, to come in and actually park the GPUs. They don't want to have to operate GPU clusters. IREN is saying we're going to do the whole kit and caboodle. Clearly much higher upside on that. Also a lot of risk. Bitcoin miners traditionally manage power and they run data centers. They don't run GPU clusters. That requires not only a whole new world of networking, but also business development to go and actually sell that compute to market. Now, IREN has a flagship deal with Microsoft worth $9.7 billion over 5 years. If that goes well, it could certainly catapult them into one of the more valuable companies working in this space. So hats off to the IREN team. Really interesting news there. We will move on to another Bitcoin miner who's trying to break into AI, or HPC services, having a little bit of frustration though. And that is MARA. And there is a new installment in the saga that has become its attempt to take a majority stake in Xion. So the headline here is French officials tap billionaire Xavier Niel to ease concerns over stalled MARA deal. This is reporting from the big whale of French crypto research and news outlet.
Yeah, I wonder if the big whale means anything in French, like if it's a French joke or maybe some reference to some obscure French battle. I don't know. Continue.
I kind of take it as a kind of like an awkward, maybe lost in translation thing.
Yeah.
Like if we were fluent in French as our second language and we were trying to come up with a cool name, we would think about it first from a perspective of English speakers, and then we would come up with something that probably doesn't really land as much for French, because like speakers, because I kind of agree, it's like big whale is kind of like, like it's kind of redundant.
Yeah,
it's a whale.
Yeah,
See,
that's French humor shining through. That's the irony of it.
I mean, could be. Quelle surprise.
Yeah,
anyway,
exactly.
So just to rewind on this, last year we reported that MARA was seeking to take a 64% stake in Exaion, which is the data center and tech subsidiary of the French national grid operator, the Électricité de France, EDF. So France's electrical utility is a national company, and Exaion is one of their subsidiaries dealing with data centers and tech matters. Well, we also reported a few weeks ago that the French Treasury gave their stamp of approval on the deal, which included an insane non-compete where EDF would not be allowed to engage in any commercial AI, HPC, or Bitcoin mining business outside of selling power to such companies for 2 years after the deals close. Really insane non-compete to slip through. And I think that's why a week later, other officials in the French government basically said, wait, hold on. They threw cold water on the deal and said, we need to review this further before we actually say this is okay to do. Now, what they're saying is maybe if we bring in this French billionaire, Xavier Niel, he was the founder or involved with the Iliad Group, which I'm not really sure what the Iliad Group does, but it's like a telecom company. And they're saying if we bring in this guy, Xavier Niel, and have him take a stake in Exaion as well, this might mollify concerns over sovereignty regarding this deal. Because the concern for the French government, rightfully so in some cases, is wait, this American company is going to come in. They're gobbling up 64% of one of our subsidiaries that is nationalized. They have an option to expand that stake to somewhere in the 70% range with add-on investments in the future. And they also have this non-compete with our utility provider, our national electric company, saying they can't do the same thing they're going to do with Exaion for 2 years after the deals close. So maybe if we bring in a billionaire to take a stake in Exaion, this would maybe mediate things. I will say that the big whale used the term, French officials think it will Frenchify the operation. To me, that seems like window dressing. Like functionally, I don't know what this means, because if MARA is still going to get a controlling stake in the company, then what does it matter if you get this French telecom billionaire who's also a minority shareholder? To me, it kind of seems like pageantry. So they feel like they're not just rolling over in front of one of America's Bitcoin mining tech giants. But the other question I had for some of our French friends, legitimate friends of the show, Gigi of UTXO Management, and also Val Rousseau, who's written a report for us and is a researcher at Hash Labs. To me, this almost seems like I don't want to say a fake problem, but a weird false dichotomy, where it's like, hang on, if the problem here is you're worried about MARA dominating this landscape, and EDF can still sell electricity, which it produces in boatloads. France has the largest nuclear footprint in Europe, and they are Europe's largest net exporter of energy. So there's a lot of surplus. Prices go negative in certain regions in France as a result of this. If that's a legitimate problem, why don't you just let Bitcoin miners come in and soak that up? Like the EDF can still sell to Bitcoin miners. Yeah, data center companies can still come and build there ostensibly and take advantage of all of this excess nuclear capacity that you produce. Why, I get the non-compete's maybe not great for your national company, but this doesn't prevent you from courting other data center companies to come and set up shop in your country. The only reason I can think that that's not happening is regulation and red tape makes it harder. I mean, Bitcoin miners have traditionally stayed away from Europe because power prices are much higher than the US. It's also less business friendly. But France seems like a clear choice to set up shop there. If there are any European Bitcoin miners listening to this, or anyone who has done business in Europe for data centers or Bitcoin mining, I'd love for you to reach out. Tell me what's going on. Send us an email at hello@blockspace.media, or Colin, COLIN, at blockspace.media. because I would love to know why they can't just court other companies to come in and soak up all of this beautiful nuclear energy that they're creating. It
The
just
beautiful,
that's rant
beautiful,
over, but did
clean,
that make
beautiful,
sense?
clean nuclear energy. I mean, Colin, you said they're trying to Frenchify the company. Maybe they meant French fry the company. um,
Hey,
or
I want to. So
freedom fry the country.
this actually was a fun fact in our newsletter.
Yeah.
French fry comes, according to urban myth, from U.S. GIs who were stationed in Passchendaele in Belgium during World War I. They saw fries for the first time. The Belgians in that region speak French, and so they associated it with French people, thus French fry. But this is very sensitive topic amongst the Belgians because that's like their national food.
Gotcha. I don't want to step on any toes. I will say, like, who out there, look, if we just invented or discovered potatoes, literally the first thing I would do is try to fry them. Like, how does that have to be technology you unlock somewhere down the road? It's like that should be intuitive. Okay, we got one last story, which is BIP360, which if you've been here for the stock commentary and the news on the mining, we're switching gears a bit. This is the other side of the brain. There's two sides in your brain. There's the mining stock equities trading and the Bitcoin technical discourse side of your brain. So basically, there's a lot of talk of quantum proofing Bitcoin these days. And there's various proposals that have been put out there to quantum proof Bitcoin. The kind of leading one, the most prominent one, is a formalized Bitcoin improvement proposal. BIP360 is the number it's been given, and it was proposed a year and a half ago. I thought this had actually already been merged into the repository that logs and tracks all these proposals called the BIPs repo, but I was mistaken. It's just been a long time. BIP360 was officially merged into that repo just this past week, and it's undergone a bit of an evolution. So this is, I believe, the third or maybe 3.5 version of this proposal. And the proposal, in short, proposes a new output type to that is quantum resistant. Basically, a new type of Bitcoin address type, which is resistant to quantum computers. We're going to take the whole, is quantum real or fake or not, or the timeline, put it over here, and just look at this proposal. This is notable because it's now official. A lot of the investors care about this, and it doesn't. When I say it's official, I mean that it's been formalized and officially merged into the library of other proposals which are defined now. It recently underwent kind of I would say almost like a rebrand, a semantic rebrand, because it had defined and called this one output type. What is it? Pay to quantum resistant hash, and then it was changed to pay to TapScript hash. But because some of the other notable core developers said that last description, pay to taproot script hash, was not truly descriptive, they changed the name of this actual output type they're calling that they're creating here to pay to Merkle root. And I won't get super far beyond that, except this does kind of now put a flag in the sand and say, okay, so there's a lot of people talking about quantum. This BIP is now out there, formalized, and we can now argue about it. I will point out, there's a couple things on here, where does it go? Where does it go from here? And there's a couple things. One, this particular proposal does not actually define a specific quantum signature scheme. So it says there's a new output type, but it doesn't say this is the specific signature scheme we're going to use. That is kind of an open question, and a whole can of worms that I actually talk about in my previous quantum videos on our YouTube. And then there's the other major component, which is we have these quantum vulnerable Bitcoin, and we have now a possible solution proposed how do we migrate that quantum vulnerable Bitcoin to the solution? And that is an open question. So these are the kind of other major components to this BIP360 proposal as I see them currently. Yeah, we cover quantum a lot. This is an evolving story, and if you want some primer and some context, I have 3 episodes already out on our YouTube that you can go and listen to. Colin, any comments on BIP360 or?
I think you covered it well. I highly recommend y'all check out that series. Charlie did a really good job on it, and it explains the quantum problem both mechanically, what it actually means for Bitcoin's technicals, and also takes a look at pros for it being an issue, cons for it maybe being overblown, investor takes, things like that. It really covers a lot of ground. And the last thing I will say is if you're inclined to follow the hive mind and think this isn't a problem, Giga Chad himself, Michael Saylor, is starting to sound the alarm. I believe, didn't he like create he's pledged to create a bounty to try to solve it?
Yeah, this is actually pretty. Yeah.
Go ahead.
Oh, well, I think that's pretty interesting because Saylor has been what we call an ossificationist. He says, don't change Bitcoin. This is the first exception he's ever made. And he's been very clear about it, actually, that he thinks we should armor Bitcoin against quantum resistance. Also, to note is that Strategy, while being like the Bitcoin guy, the face of Bitcoin, Strategy being the face of Bitcoin companies at the corporate level, so much that people even just blur the lines between saying that MicroStrategy is owning Bitcoin itself. It's a common phrase. Strategy has not, despite their billions, supported the Bitcoin developer ecosystem at all. And this is a public statement saying we want to push this type of stuff forward. So my eyes on this. Maybe Strategy will start taking a proactive stance. They've not really demonstrated any interest or really a core competency around the code side of Bitcoin. So it'll be interesting to see what might come out of this. They've announced other initiatives in the past. Pretty much every previous strategy fest or whatever it is, strategy summit they have, there's like some announcement that Saylor has that is within a year totally forgotten. There was a Lightning. They said they're going to be a Lightning development factory. They said they're going to do some kind of decentralized identity system in years past, and now they have quantum. I will say quantum feels the most sticky because it's not just
absolutely because there's a huge incentive for him to guard 700,000 Bitcoin.
Yeah,
if that doesn't make you feel a little weird thinking about Strategy having that much Bitcoin,
yeah,
a little soul searching. A few more comments before we get to the Cry Corner, which is also quantum related. It's interesting you said he's never funded devs before, and this is the first time he's saying we need to fix this.
Yeah.
It makes me think of Nick Carter on Unchained recently. He made the point that he feels like the institutions, the big institutions, if they feel like they're worried enough about this, there's a fire lit under their ass, they're going to fund developers who will work on this. And you might see a pretty interesting, I hesitate to say that it's going to be as pitched as the block size wars, because I think hopefully in the end of the day, adding quantum proof addresses to Bitcoin will be less controversial. But you almost have this scenario in which if companies like Strategy and some of the other institutions like BlackRock, Fidelity, Vanguard, etc., if they start pushing for quantum proofing Bitcoin and start bankrolling their own developers, that really changes the landscape of Bitcoin's consensus, and it changes the landscape of the development community, I think, in ways that, we could probably have a whole podcast on that. I think the only way that it gets sticky, and I think I know or Saylor would fall on this, is does that proposal include a provision for burning Satoshi's coins and other quantum vulnerable address coins? Or does it just say we're going to leave those alone? I would imagine that given the incentives, someone like Saylor is going to say we need to burn them. I would be very shocked if he was like, let's just leave those alone for anyone to plunder and potentially flash crash Bitcoin's price, right? I mean, you're talking about 1 million plus coins sitting in quantum vulnerable addresses. That will be, I think, the big dividing line between where people fall on whatever the quantum fork wars. I don't want to get people worked up. That might not happen. I shouldn't even brand them as the quantum fork wars, but I foresee something like that potentially shaking out as we reach Q day, or as we approach Q day, which no one really knows when that's going to be, but you know.
Yeah, exactly. Same. I think you said it very well. Really interesting story. Okay, now for our cry corner. This is one that I
this one comes straight from the tap.
Yeah.
I mean, you're not the source of it, but you did comment on it. And
yeah,
I do want to play the first minute because
I have it here. I can play it.
I do too. Here, I can pull it up.
Here, you pull it up.
And then we'll look at your tweets with regards to it.
Yeah. Okay. So we just talked about quantum, right? We're quantum experts. We've done the research. We've done a lot of legwork, that's for sure. Here is another one of the biggest podcasts in Bitcoin, with Jeff Booth and Preston Pish, two of the, I would say they're like close. They're on many people's Mount Rushmore, and this is a podcast clip. It goes on for 9 minutes. The whole podcast is an hour, where they're talking about how there's zero risk of quantum attack.
And we'll just play the first minute.
Yeah, just roll tape.
If this is true, there's zero risk of quantum attack on Bitcoin. It's an entirely different model, similar to a fiat model being able to provide value forever, right? Because, but would you dive into?
Yeah, let's pull on that.
Let's pull on that thread and drive, because it is literally an either or. It cannot both be true.
Explain why it's an either or, because I don't know that I necessarily understand that, Jeff.
So the reason why it's either or, it's like it's Bitcoin or it's quantum in terms of quantum computers. And the reason why I say that is because it relies on the ontology of time itself. Bitcoin literally wouldn't work if the blocks were just these continuous morphing thing. Like, it needs to be discrete and quantized. So right there, we have some contradiction to this axiom of continuous time that all physics relies on. Like, we want to make a note. It's like both general relativity and quantum mechanics both assume continuous time. And so if you pull that assumption away and say, no, it's discrete, we have to actually rebuild those theories from the bottom up again with this new understanding of time.
Jack, can I just...
The ontology of time. I mean, I honestly thought I had heard it all from Bitcoin podcasts, but that line is what absolutely sent me when I listened to this for the first time. What are we talking about here? This is insane. I will say this much. I'm not a physicist, obviously. Never took a physics course. Quantum mechanics are way beyond me. That being said, I'm pretty good when it comes to linguistic things, and I know gobbledygook and filler and filibustering when I hear it. I can't think of that as anything more than just absolute shite, man. I mean, what are we doing?
There are good criticisms of quantum. We've entertained them on our content. This is not one of them. This is, and what's interesting is that all of the speakers say, well, I'm not technical, so I'm not getting into the technical side of it because I don't really understand it. They begin arguing against quantum from one of like axioms, foundational axioms of like logic and reason. That is not really what we're talking about. This is a physical and computer problem. This is a physics problem. And this is like, I look at this and I used spicy, not safe for work language to describe.
You really went gloves off on this. Was rare. I rarely see you post like this. I was like, oh wow, Charlie on the warpath last night.
Mainly because I'm envious. Like, I do the work to like try to have technically accurate coverage of this topic, and this stuff gets tons of views and is wildly successful, and it's total BS. And it's not only just that, it's like that this is received well. Prior to me doing this, I'm not saying I'm the cause of it. Part of me like talking about this. All of the comments were like sycophantic and like validating, and people saying my mind is blown, and they're listening to the whole episode. It goes on for an hour, and it's not just quantum here. The whole premise for this episode, this whole podcast, is a paper that was published, I believe, pseudonymously, that is over 200 pages long. And I challenge you to read that paper more than like a page or two without your brain melting. It is as if you had an AI trained on like the worst of Bitcoin Maxi podcast slop, filled with aphorisms. And the more you can say axiom and like logic and time, the higher score you get. And it's just the whole thing is total BS. And I just am amazed because Preston, gotta love him, he does, he tries to be a good podcast host, but like he kind of entertains it. Jeff Booth, man, like this guy is just sputtering. It has no place. He should not be talking about this. It's wild to me that this ever got like presented on a podcast.
Yeah, and you can kind of tell that Preston, I don't think Preston feels comfortable pushing back against one of his friends with Jeff, but you can kind of tell in that interview that he's like, this doesn't sound like the best. Yeah. He's sitting there. I know he like historically frowns or characteristically frowns, but he's kind of sitting there like, he looks like an AI generated face of like where you take someone smiling and turn their smile.
I imagine maybe like they're like, okay, we got to get these like 2 Zoomers on here, and they're like the token Zoomers, and Jeff Booth is in for a podcast. We got to have a podcast this week. What are we going to talk about? Somebody's like, oh, I got this paper. I can drive this paper forwards. And they're like, okay. So they hit record, and then Preston probably opens up the paper and like, 2 minutes, and he's like, oh no, this is kind of just word salad.
Yeah, and that's
what it is.
You can wax philosophical when it comes to Bitcoin as an economic phenomenon, as a moral phenomenon, as a cultural phenomenon, right?
Yeah.
But this is something that like quantum mechanics, truly, you could probably fit the people who really understand quantum theory into a classroom, right? Like a lecturing hall, potentially. And the fact that you're going on here talking about stuff, telling Bitcoiners to not worry about this, it makes sense why I think sometimes he goes a little bit too hard, but why, when Nick Carter's been sounding the alarm on this, probably just makes him want to bang his head against the wall.
Yeah.
Because the actual researchers working on quantum computers are saying we're having some breakthroughs. I know that there are a lot of developers who, are saying, well, actually, like, wake me up when, you can actually continually run this, where you're not just straining to get like a few qubits out for like a second or whatever. But I think it's just Bitcoiners need to learn to stay in their lane. There's a reason why I've just like kind of stayed away from this subject, because I'm totally reliant on people who understand it better than me, and I can't evaluate the arguments very well. I know that these arguments sound absolutely ridiculous. And going back, one last thing, and then I'll shut up. You talking about it being envy. I can get that because the quantum series you put out, you spend a lot of time going back and forth with people, spend a lot of time editing it, and we're really thoughtful about how you are presenting each
argument. I was the experts. I got quotes. I read tons of papers.
Yeah, you spent hours on that, and then these guys just go on for like an hour and just absolutely fart nothing into the air, and then it gets 1.2 thousand likes on X, and suddenly, like you said, everyone from the class of 2021 onward is saying, good job, everybody. We did it. Mission accomplished,
Yeah, it makes you very bearish on the average Bitcoiner's ability to think critically. For an ecosystem and a culture which like absolutely hangs its hat on this first principles thinking, this is the opposite of that. And it's validated very publicly that the majority of this is not first principles thinking. And it's wild to me that's the case. So anyway, this struck a particular nerve, and we are looking for a good cry corner and a good rant. This is more.
We're not salty. You're salty.
You're salty. Yeah. So I think that's it. That's it for this pod. If you like this, make sure to put on your calendar Fridays, 12 Eastern. We're gonna be going live, and let us know. So like and subscribe. Hit that notification button, especially on YouTube, because when we go live on YouTube, it'll push it to your phone so you know we're going live.
Smash that MF like and subscribe. Yeah. We will be publishing this on Saturday, so if you're listening to this on RSS, we recorded this on Friday. If you want to tune in live, like Charlie said, take a look at 12 p.m. EST going forward on Fridays for the live show. For next Tuesday's show, we have Chris Alfano from 360 Energy talking about what's going on with oil and gas mining. I think I know this topic, and then I do a new interview, and then I learn something incredible that I never realized before about this specific niche in Bitcoin mining. We also touch on how likely it is that the oil and gas play with Bitcoin mining would work for AI and HPC. And we take a look at some of the mega projects that Chevron and Exxon are planning for, like 1 gigawatt data center deals with some of the hyperscalers. So really fun interview. I had a great rip with him. Take a look for that and keep your eyes peeled and ears perked for that on Tuesday. Otherwise, have a beautiful weekend, y'all. We'll see you later.
Catch you all later.